Want to welcome to the program attorney Matthew Butterick. He is one of the attorneys, or maybe the sole attorney, working on a class action suit that includes authors, Sarah Silverman as an author of her memoir, The Bedwater, and Paul Tremblay, Mona Awad, and others. So these are some big authors. And these suits are, Matthew, who are the defendants in these suits that you're bringing in? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. Nice to be here. And I should say that I am not doing these alone. These are big cases. And to do these cases, I've teamed up with a great attorney in San Francisco named Joseph Saveri, who's a long-term antitrust and class action lawyer. Whereas my background is more as a professional designer and artist and programmer. So that's sort of the expertise I bring. The defendants in these cases with the authors, there's two defendants. There's one case against OpenAI that's challenging their training and deployment of these, what they call the GPT language models, right? Which people are getting to use in this ChatGPT web app. And then there's a second case against Meta, the parent company of Facebook, of course, challenging their use of books as training data in their language model, which is called Llama.
Okay, so tell us the process in which this happens, because it seems to me that and maybe we can put a pin in this question for a moment, but it seems to me that this process, the black box that is this sort of these type of artificial intelligence, is also applicable to things like voice and images. In other words, you've got to feed stuff into one side of it, and it cannot produce its end product without that input.
That's absolutely correct. And in fact, my co-counsel, Joe Saveri, and I, this is actually the kind of third set of cases we filed. Last November, we filed a case on behalf of open source programmers challenging a software AI product called GitHub Copilot. And then in January, we filed suit against Stability AI, Midjourney, and DeviantArt on behalf of a class of artists, to your point, challenging their use of their copyrighted artist training data. So you're absolutely right that all of these systems derive their value from the work of human creators. And, so I like to say that artificial intelligence is a bit of a misnomer because it's really human intelligence that's simply been divorced from the creators, repackaged, and had a new price tag put on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an important sort of like conceptual thing to understand, right? Because theoretically, if we took a baby and provided them with food, but never interacted with them, they would still develop and be intelligent. Their language processes may not be the same if they were isolated, but if they were on a desert island or something, they would still develop intelligence in a way that these artificial intelligence can't. They need this input to output anything, it seems like.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I'm not a cognitive psychologist, so the baby part I don't know about. But I think your intuition is correct that whereas we hear a lot, it's frequently said that these AIs learn in the way humans do, and yet there's so many differences that go unremarked, and you raise one of them, which is that humans have a whole sort of contextual backdrop in which to situate new information, and these AIs don't. Everything they learn, so to speak, is from the training data. They can't generate anything that they didn't see in the training data. And so, and moreover, they don't understand the meaning of anything in the training data. Whether it's images or text or programming code, it's all just a bunch of numbers to the AI. It doesn't, know what a photo of a cat with a purple hat looks like.
Let me ask you about that though, because I did hear some, I think it was a This American Life on that, where when they were first rolling it out. Now I'm a little bit skeptical to listen to like what Microsoft, scientists are saying about their own thing. And so, and supposedly the amazing thing was like that the artificial intelligence drew a picture of a unicorn, on its own in some fashion. Like it knew what a unicorn was, and it just drew like a stick figure of it. But this is a different thing, right? Because they're not generating their own new stuff. They're actually just sort of regurgitating the copyright. So let's talk about like, what are the damages for a tort? If I remember correctly, you need to prove a damage or harm. You need to be able to say that there are damages that can be remedied by a court, and you need to show some causality. What's the best place to start when you're laying out this case?
Sure. Well, the core of these cases with Sarah Silverman and the other authors is good old-fashioned copyright infringement. And sometimes we've heard, these questions that are being raised in Congress about whether new laws are necessary to regulate or challenge AI. And so far, I'm not sure that's entirely necessary, because copyright is a great law and it's served us well for hundreds of years. And the problem is the same as always. I mean, the copyright is the giving the author the exclusive right to determine who gets to do certain things with their work, including make a copy. And in the first instance, these AI companies have picked up a whole lot of books. We don't know exactly how many. We think it's probably hundreds of thousands of books, most of which are under copyright, and fed them into their system for training without the author's consent, and certainly without giving them any compensation or credit. So that right there, we're alleging, is garden variety copyright infringement.
And how are they using it? Are they just using it to train like how Sarah Silverman would write, or is it like, what is it? What are the outputs? What are the outputs that are there any outputs that are problematic, I guess?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think the AI proponents always like to I kind of imagine like two ends of the telescope. They like to kind of look at these systems from the output backwards, and they like to hold up these outputs that, seem to be creative and original. And they say, well, what's the problem? This doesn't look like any of the training data. But I think as a legal matter, you really need to start the inquiry at the other side. Where does the training data come from? What does the input look like? And part of what these cases are about is tracing that data. It's like, okay, it was copyright infringement, at the outset. How far does that persist into the model? We are alleging that these models themselves are infringing derivative works because they are uniquely and exclusively derived from other people's copyrighted expressions. We're also alleging that the outputs are infringing derivative works. So the answer to your question is, the infringement can be happening at many points along the spectrum.
And you don't need to come up with like some type of some type of specific dollar figure for damages per se, because this is a copyright case, and there are the copyright laws sort of like really lay that out, right, on some level. Like, I mean, it is, or is it a function of the book is worth X number of dollars, or what is it? Like, will there be a difference if I sold 50,000 copies of my memoir versus 500 copies of my memoir, but both have been put in there? Would there be a difference in terms of like the damages sought in that instance?
Well, we'll see how the cases go. I mean, obviously, we're bringing this as a class action, which means ultimately we're going to ask the court to certify that we're actually litigating all the claims of all the authors. So there's going to be a number of ways to kind of go about calculating damages. But in the first instance, and to your point, copyright law does contain a provision for statutory damages, which kind of sets a floor on it, and so that's a place to start as far as what the possible liability here is.